The borders of Kimri were ever expanding, and Settra was pleased to see that his empire had nearly been restored, with some new additions in the southern wastes. All fronts of the war were steadily progressing, with each commander claiming victory after victory for the glory of Nehekhara. The lesser kingdoms of Order were suffering greatly under the tide of death and destruction wrought by both the chaotic forces led by a nightmarish alliance of Be'lakor, the first Demon Prince, and Arkhan, the Everchosen, as well as the massive Asrai wild hunt tearing across the countrysides and slaughtering all in their path with no regard for previous alliance. Across the world from the rampages of chaos and the Treefolk, Queen Rasut had her entire army loaded onto tomb ships at Libaris and set sail for the Dragon Isles, keen to purge the corruption from the Lizardmen cities and establish a new front to hunt down the slippery High Queen Khalida. Her legions landed at Dragonfang Mount, eager to spill the cursed ichor of the demon host positioned as defenders. The battle was swift and brutal, with very few of her own soldiers falling in combat. The priests and laborers were quickly set with the unenviable task of cleansing the corruption of both magics and festering piles of putrid flesh, cauldrons filled to the brim of plagues and poxes to slay thousands, and all other manner of horrors spilling forth from every dark corner of the settlement. As we continue to push back the champions of the four Chaos Gods, the dark horrors of Nagash and the filthy Ratmen, lesser kingdoms of Order have finally realized their place in our empire. None have had the wisdom to outright pledge vassalization like the Dwarves and the Golden Order. The High Elves and Empire both wish for a formal military alliance, and we shall accept this proposal. For Settra wishes not for the destruction of all, and these lesser kingdoms clearly are in need of the majesty of our legions in order to weather the ever-present onslaught of evil threatening their very existence. King Rakash, formerly of Settra, was the next great king to be raised and given command. His honor guard, Rakash's Scourge, was raised alongside him, and they are now the newest army to march toward the front line to engage the hordes of Asrai pouring out of Athel Loren. His specialty was facing against the heavily armored dwarves in their mountain holds. His blade would cleave elves just as well. Raised with Rakash and his guard were the Harbingers of Ursirian. Disciple priests of the god of the Nehekharan underworld, they are empowered by their devout faith, and wield the power of Shaish, the Wind of Death, adeptly in battle. They ride now to join Arkhan the Black in his forced crusade to slaughter any and all who would practice the lesser necromancies of the vampires. After being routed at every engagement, the Changer's minion Kairos and the Demon Prince Karan have regrouped, and are attempting now a two-pronged attack on both the Southlands and the Southern Wastes. These arrogant fools think us so weak as to not be able to defend our conquests. The lesson of the desert shall be taught to these feathered vermin as often as they wish to learn it. Settra is eager to clear these wastes and finally return home to the warm sands of Kimri. Deep in the Broken Teeth Mountains, King Nekaph is readying his riders for one of their most dangerous battles yet. 3 huge armies of Skaven lay ahead of them, staggered by a few miles due to a slight disagreement in their deployment. Meekhead Taker, formerly of Clan Moors, was leading a slave drive from one of the nearby Nest Warrens, and would be the first group his elite horsemen would be tasked with putting to the sword. Next would come the more disciplined armies of Clan Carrion. This would be a battle worthy of the Desert Wind. With the fall of Clan Moors, Meekhead Taker has joined on up with Clan Carrion to defend Nagashizzar. He has quite the elite group of allies here for this battle, but they will prove paltry in comparison to the might that King Nekaph and Apophis are bringing to bear. I did spend a couple of our canopic jars there to give a couple of the actual infantry line a bit of more staying power with the Eternals, so more armor, more leadership, more melee defense, and missile resistance from both of these. We've got the equine mummification going down on Rakhaman Hotep's Lizard Riders, and that's going to give them more attack, defense, speed, strength, and wayfare, so they're going to be able to zoom around pretty quickly. We gave that to both of our ROR units, so the Storm Riders of Kassar are also going to be incredibly potent, and moving at 116 speed, so they're going to be flying around the battlefield. It's going to be quite the battle. Let's get to it. Right then, let's get to extinguishing these rats that are defending Nagashizzar. It does not belong to them. It doesn't belong to us either, but we are coming back to reclaim the stronghold of Nagash. We have our forces set up as follows. We have a whole heap of enemies coming on in from the reinforcements. We've got all of our archers kind of on the flanks to provide a bit of annoyance. We've got all of my Tomb Guard horsemen ready to charge on in as well. We're going to kind of keep them back and allow the archers and some of the others to charge on in and crush these Skaven slaves first before we move anyone else in. We should be able to do most of this damage with our artillery teams and Nekaph and not really have to bring too much more of the soldiers on in. Screaming Skull Catapults blasting on away. Pulping some rats with some pretty deadly efficiency. Apophis has some hate in his eyes and he is going directly after the Packmaster, wanting to eliminate him first. Queek Headtaker is also pretty deadly, but he's got so much armor and melee stats. Defeating him very quickly would be very tough. So if we can take out this Packmaster first, we'll have a pretty good job here. Nekaph took a pretty sizable hit from Queek. As you can see, he's not a weak fighter by any means. The Lizard Riders crash on into this group of Skaven slaves. Just gotta clear them out as quick as we can. Even give it a couple of buff upgrades. We've got our archers try to rush on around. They summoned some clan rats in on this group, but wasn't quite enough to actually catch them. We've got horsemen charging on in from all sides here, just trying to cut down these Skaven slaves as fast as we can. We can eliminate this army and most of them and get them running away. Will not be so bad once these other guys start rushing in, because they'll be using these other guys as a bit of a distraction while they shoot on in with all of their big beastie units. We're going to have them kind of rushing on in behind. We've already scared most of these guys off. The strength of Nekaph's crown cannot be understated, so everyone he is going to be fighting against pretty much just turns around and runs without too much trouble there. Tomb Guard horsemen are riding down some Skaven slaves. Same thing over there, just going to talk about breaking skulls. I don't think any of you will be breaking skulls. The only thing that is broken is your poor Verminous bodies. Most of the rats have already been crushed. We have the Storm Riders hunting down the individual wolf rats, but the reinforcements charge in and immediately start dropping down some lightning, which we luckily dodged there. We need to quickly kind of rotate the troops around. We have defeated and routed off most of the Skaven slaves, and they're weak enough at this point where they will just turn and run. They don't have quite enough leadership to actually stay and fight. So now you got to organize the forces and get them ready for this next group of our army here. Brain fried for a second. These guys are going to be much more deadly. They've got a lot more heavy armor, some big, large units, a whole bunch of poison mortars firing on away too, trying to bring down some of our horse archers. Luckily, they are quick enough that they can dodge a majority of that rain. But this is by no means going to be an easy block of rats to defeat here. Poison Wind are splashing down, doing everything they can to try to get some of that damage over time on our units. They did get these guys, unfortunately. Everyone that splashes down into takes some Poison Wind damage over time, which is pretty unfortunate. So they're a nasty bit artillery team. Just trying to keep them as spread out as we can. I'm not really inclined to charge in on this front line until we have Nekaph, so we're going to try to get our horsemen around behind and eliminate these Poison Wind mortars, which are still firing away in our archers. A pretty sizable hit there. Lots to micro going on. Let's go ahead and slow things down while they kind of rush on in. Now that there's no one really protecting them except for these Clan Rat Spears, I thought the time was nigh to rush on in and kind of shut down the Poison Wind. They're moving forward. Over on the other side, our Screaming Skull Catapults are trying to blast apart the heavily armored Storm Vermin. Looks like that one's going to splash home. Clan Carrion, Chunky Salsa. Some of them are smashing against these rocks here, which is a bit unfortunate. We're going to have to select better targets there. But just 2 skulls hitting do a pretty sizable chunk to their health. The rest of the forces are consolidating. I was trying to have the Tomb Guard Horsemen eliminate Queek Headtaker, but he has so much armor. He is just holding in for as long as he can. We'll send these guys over to help in a moment. We're just kind of keeping all of our frontline infantry back. We know these Poison Wind mortars are back there. They're being run down at the moment. We've got 2 Mutant Ogres fighting Nekaph same time. He's going to bat one about. That one's going to flee. And now he's going to turn and deal with the other. Skaven slaves are trying to charge him in the back, but those little rusty spears should do absolutely nothing to the Charnel Obsidian. Rattling guns also being run down. We absolutely can afford them to be firing for less time than 0. Lightning dropping down as we throw some spells back at them, trying to rip their flesh apart with a bit of Doom Swarm there. All of those reinforcing troops are going to run right through the Scarabs and get a bit of their flesh nom-nommed off, cookie cutter shark style. Bunch of arrows plinking in on these halberdiers, who luckily do not have a lot of shield. They have no shield to defend themselves. Those hands don't really work all that well. There is carnage going on all over the place. Nekaph's crown is popped once again here, just trying to keep all of the enemy fleeing from him. He has so many debuff penalties that he's really effective at running down Skaven.
Run, flee!
They still have a lot of forces left. We've got to kind of consolidate ours, keep smashing away at some of their weakened stuff, and then retreating away to eat anything that gives us chase. Mutant Rat Ogre's doing some damage, but we've got him away from the bulk of his forces, so he's a lot easier to finish off here. Just got to give these guys the order to back on away so they're not getting chopped up. Fire going on to the back. Kepler Guard are easily cutting through the Storm Vermin. They regenerate, and they will pretty easily outlast these heavily armored and mostly elite rats. One of Nekaph's summoned horsemen is starting to dwindle. We just kind of keep rushing it around to stop as many of these guys from firing as we can. Nekaph pops the crown once more there. I guess previously it wasn't, it was just him being terrified of him. Pops the crown to drop the leadership of these Storm Vermin. More times we can make them flee, the less likely they are to come on back. Well, once they do run, I believe it's 4 times, they break permanently and they can no longer regain their leadership. Take a good look at the battle overall. We've got stuff going on all over the place. Nekaph and his War Sphinx chasing fools down. We've got some Storm Riders off on the side. Carnage is afoot. Speed it on back up enough, and then we'll things back going. Weak is still alive back here, and these Tomb Guard horsemen have been unable to finish him off. Much more lightning dropping down as well. Luckily, missing a majority of our useful units. Kepler Guard continue their everlasting march. Try to charge them in on these other Storm Vermin, find the most dangerous units.
They flee! We run!
Office also has himself a whole heap of new friends. A mixture of ogres and Storm Vermin. See, the catapults aren't doing a whole lot of damage to the Storm Vermin. They're pretty healthy. We've got a whole lot of carnage up here at the top. Our Lizard Riders are doing battle with Elfin Abomination, which was winning that fight quite handily. We sent them a couple more reinforcements, but all of that regeneration was just doing a little bit too much for what we had on that side. Decided to retreat those Lizard Riders in on the other troops, find someone that they're more capable of defeating. They rush on down and take out some Gutter Runners. Got a lot of fleeing rats and a lot of rats that are unable to keep up with our overall forces. Another Sandstorm dropping on down. They run. Now, most of us don't run. We just shatter away into dust and blow away on the wind. But at this point, you all run for your lives. Clan Carrion has been defeated. We just have to blend up as many of these rats as we can before they retreat back to their walls and then claim Nagashizzar. And slaughter was to be the only outcome for Queek and his Raven Rat brethren. We gained a small smattering of gold and a lot more experience for Nekaph there, and I think we're going to immediately go ahead and bind these souls to keep our pressure up on the town. Empower ourselves through their defeat. It would appear our growing empire has attracted the attention of parasites. The filthy undead pirates of Lustria's cursed shores have declared a petty war on us, at the same time as ambassadors for Slaanesh bring us a perfumed declaration of our impending doom. Paltry fools one and all. Nehekara would not be threatened by moist pirates and the slippery acolytes of the heathen god of debauchery, and we invite them to test their might against any of our legions. Clan Carrion has been revealed to gain an Armor of Destiny, which is pretty Good for one of our side characters there. And then at this point, we have weakened him enough that I am happy to move on in here and attack Nagashizzar directly. And then at this point, it would give us a close victory with medium casualties, but you know we've got to charge on in here and fight this one inside the walls there. We have to claim Nagashizzar the proper way. This is unfortunately going to be a Skaven settlement. It'd be really cool if this was a good and proper town, but it looks to be a Skaven settlement, and I could be wrong here. This looks slightly different, but I do see the twisting and turning of the tunnels that you would normally see with the Skaven settlements. Let's get to the Purge. And now we move to crush the beleaguered defenders. They have already been bloodied in our previous battle. Most of their force well under half health. All we've got to do is move on in and breach these gates, and then crush these already very weakened defenders. We have the team kind of set up as follows. We've got all of the Tomb Guard horsemen off to the side. 3 of the archers are Storm Guard and normal Nekaph horsemen to rush in once the enemies have abandoned the fort tower. Office to take the lower side, and Nekaph on the northern. Of course, we have all of our infantry up here, as well as some of the single group of our catapults. Office is going by himself fully. We can kind of split dudes up exactly where we want later on. We've got another group of horsemen on the other side here to head off these Skaven slaves as they come on in to reinforce, and then go attack the gates. Let's let the battle begin. The Skaven start off with a deadly salvo from their towers, already taking out several of our Guard of Nekaph, but we're going to respond in kind, try to blast those Skaven off the wall. Nekaph is going to immediately get to work tearing down that gate, and all of the poor fools behind the wall are going to be confused as to what they need to do. Sandstorm is going to come on down as the catapults fire away. A bit of artillery dueling going as the rats are whipped up in a sandstorm. Gutter runners rush on over and they get caught as well. Plague launchers are making their presence felt. We've got to move up. If we can take the walls very easily here against even their storm vermin, and once we do that, we can shut down their towers. So we have our artillery teams now dueling with their own. Realized that it was a fool's errand to try to knock down those towers. We'll slow things down just a little bit. We've got all of our archers up, blasting away at their storm vermin on the walls, while our horsemen move in to tear down those gates with all of those blades and lightning. The Tomb Guard horsemen are rushing in from the other side here, while our poor Guard of Nekaph continues to get blasted apart by artillery teams. Narrowly misses that time. Some more warp lightning dropping down on our summoned horsemen of Nekaph as the crown just is a ring of nope for the enemy there. They're all just turning and running the second they enter. We've got but 23 seconds for our enemies to show up, and we sent one group of the Nekaph horse archers over, who are unfortunately going to take some nasty hits from the wall. Our own artillery teams are blasting apart our horsemen. Friendly fire is definitely going to be the name of the game this battle. Nekaph is kind of handling things by himself. A whole bunch of poor fools being blended up there. A lot of them seem to be back way further into the settlement for some reason, with some of their more intact groups of soldiers. But they are going to be making their presence felt now. Open Abomination gets grabbed with the grip of the Syrian. We're going to try to keep all of our horsemen away from that. We're just going to keep them fighting his other soldiers. It's not quite fast enough to keep up. And we now have the Guard of Nekaph to get it bogged down in a fight with some anti-large. Gates are open, so that means the horsemen charge on in. And gets clotheslined on the way with a shield. Slices his friend in half. Our horsemen are very elite, and we're going to be making pretty quick work of even those storm vermin. Amazing to see. Speed things back up to kind of see the battle taking place up in the north here. Got some more Tomb Guard horsemen rushing on through. They blast down a warp bomb, but mostly missing a majority of our actual soldiers there, which is very thankful. Wanted to shut down their artillery team as Nekaph chases off the Gracier. We've just got a few more units to deal with, including those plague mortars. The poison wind mortars. On the other end there, they have not yet gotten through the walls, but those Skaven slaves were pretty quickly chased off. No trouble at all. Over on the main battle, the Hellpit Abomination lies slain, and all of its Skaven slaves that popped out of its disgusting, distended corpse are now also slain. Should be a quick matter to round up the rest of these clan rats. Nothing slows their charge, especially not a 2-foot-tall rat man. I'm gonna continue to chase down those. Man, these guys are moving quick. Running them down with some aggression. The Tomb Guard of Nehekara have some hate in their heart. We've got our horsemen inside with the bows to try to shoot down any stragglers they can, and then we'll just kind of storm the rest of the horsemen through. Blast apart these different infantry lines. Goth's riders make it on in and just make very short work. We do have to worry about a mutant rat ogre, but we have so many of our own troops we should scare him off pretty quick. It's some nasty hits to our Tomb Guard horsemen. We're going to pull him on away. Let that ogre flee himself. Nekaph is absolutely tired of artillery teams, so he's blending them up. One final cast from their Grey Seer before he flees, because why not? They usually get that off just in time before they retreat. But yeah, that's the victory. Nagashizzar and its defenders all to a cough. The numerous legions of Khemri are on the march. And as our empire continues to project strength in both military might and benevolence shown to our enemies, the Bretonnians of Carcassonne plead for assistance in their war against the undead hordes of the Barrow Legion, trudging down as an unending deluge from the Blackstone Post. Our soldiers will lend aid where they can, but the Bretonnians have been informed they are responsible for ultimately dealing with a threat from a minor necromancer. Hierophant Inathor has proven an unmovable bastion in the face of overwhelming odds. While rebuilding and reinforcing the protective enchantments in Verminous, a vast and very hungry horde of ogre bulls came crashing over the hillsides, led by 2 ogre tyrants looking to claim some easy loot and fresh meat. They instead were slaughtered to the last, the hillside covered in their corpulent fallen, left to be picked at by the carrion. Not long after, 2 dwarf lords made a very similar attempt to defeat the Hierophant in battle. It was as if Clan Angrod had emptied the mines, there were so many laborers brought to battle. In an undoubtedly last-ditch effort to halt the advance of Khemri, hundreds would be sacrificed for the small chance of victory. Of course, they would break against our shield wall time and time again, and be blasted apart by screaming skulls and volatile souls from our artillery. Very few would survive to limp back to Myrmidons, with new grudges for their book. The Vulture Lord grows tired of these marauding armies of Asrai. They rampage in his lands, kill his subjects, and steal from the coffers of Khemri. No longer. His legions march on the first group his carrion riders had scouted out. A dragon of the forest and several contingents of horsemen rode against them. The desert wind would of course find these horsemen weak and useless, and Amenemhotep knew the tale of this victory would amuse Nekaph, and if he lost, he would never hear the end of it. Alright, now for our first true duel with the Asrai. Let's get to it. This is going to be a nasty fight. We'll get things in slow-mo so I can actually take a look at our units here and what the plan is, since we were sprinting on forward there. We have kind of the Bronze Host taking up the center, being the soak for all of the main damage and throwing those javelins at all of the big targets. The Forest Dragon and the... What else in here is huge? We've got the Forest Dragon, we've got several of the Wild Riders and those Glade Riders. This is a fairly mobile army, so we're going to want to have to draw these Glade Riders into combat to actually get them to fight, because they've got some really, really nice missile strength at 35. And do they actually cause terror? Or they cause fear? Either way, that's still pretty nasty. It doesn't work for us since we're undead, so fear is nothing to the Skeleton Bone Boys, but against normies, that's going to be pretty nasty. But yeah, we are going to do the Obi-Wan School of Tactics. We're going to take the high ground here and try to funnel the Asrai through this small gap and around this other one. We don't have as many frontline soldiers as they do, at least I don't think we do. Yeah, they've got a lot more frontline, and we are going to have a lot of them tied up while being shot at by the Glade Riders. So we need our archers, which actually have much, much less range than the enemy, to be able to fire while they are occupied on others. We've got these guys have less range by a little bit, so we've got them on the inside, and the higher range Sea Vultures on the outside. Bit of reshuffling, we want the Bronze Host taking the outside to deal with these large units. We decided that the Tomb Corsairs can easily handle the different Wildwood Rangers and such. We've got a bit of Spectral Archers going down, dealing their damage, ripping through this line of Wildwood Rangers, which we really need to eliminate these guys before they get into combat. A shot of Kurnos going out, trying to seek and destroy some units themselves. I don't think they'll get as much damage as we just did, though. Those poor Wildwood Rangers. Mini Lay slain. Several are going to get back up, but either way, their health is going to be pretty well drained there. We've got another cast of that as well, so we'll be making good use. His volley of Kurnos apparently did absolutely nothing, missed his target entirely. The Vultures are ready, our boats are ready, we're ready to throw down. We just have to draw him on over. Which mission successful. The Bronze Host on the right is moving on over to engage its targets. It's got a lot more deadly units over here. And actually, we're not able to see these Deepwood Scouts just yet, any of their archers. These guys are hiding until they start firing. So now that Amenemhotep is under fire, we can definitely see them. So I'm going to try to draw out some of their arrows as much as we can, try to dodge them around. He has a lot of armor, so the Widows are going to have a little bit of trouble getting through that, because they don't have a lot of armor piercing themselves. The Dragon is trying to go very wide there. Not something we like to see, but a big chunk of damage going down on our boats. They're pretty susceptible to arrow fire. But I'd rather them be soaking that damage than any of our archer teams, because they will be lit to shreds pretty quickly. Pride of Zondri is getting annihilated, having a hard time not taking damage. Got a Pit of Shades ripping apart those Eternal Wardens on the other side as the Wildwood Riders rush on in. Orion's faithful. Blade Riders are starting their harrying approach, and we're going to shut down those archers in the back with a summon of Angry Crabs. They are hungry, and the tree people will make do. They taste like eel fudge cookies, for any who doesn't know. These poor Rangers and Asrai Spears, they got nom-nommed up into the Soul Realm. Dragon getting some noxious breath down on our Tomb Corsairs there. They're going to need to try to pull away from that, but I think it's going to be too late, and they're going to take nasty damage. Good fourth of their health, almost a fourth. As the boat's coming over to tie the dragon up and allow those Tomb Corsairs and the Sea Vultures to fire in with as little distractions as possible. Sending the Prince on in forward to try to engage with these Glade Riders and all of our carrion as well. It's time the Vultures get involved. Disciples of Walata flying their oversized birds on into battle. Dropping a Spirit Leech down on the Glade Lord here to help Amenemhotep deal with him quicker. More quickly, the Van Geist Revenge going down as well. We'll hit a slow-mo as the cannonballs rip through the back line. I think we got a little bit of a miscast targeting here, so we could have got a lot more damage, but it does make some nice chunky salsa out of a whole heap of Asrai. Most of them bisected, any other that weren't were pulverized. Crabs are running rampant, and the Bronze Legion, which is by far one of my favorite infantry groups in this entire mod here, annihilating the Glade Riders. They should not have come in range of these javelins. This will be their next target. They turn quickly to deal with them. A pretty sizable force of Asrai easily controlled and destroyed here by our nasty Tomb Corsairs. Although the Glade Lord has defeated one of our... Never mind, I thought he was down. He was hiding behind Amenemhotep. Bit of blast of waves washing the blood off. Trying to give him a little bit of a shower, but I don't think it's going to matter. The carrions sweep on overhead. And this first battle with the Asrai here is pretty decisively in our favor. We've taken some damage on our boats, but it's better than it going anywhere else, and the Asrai break. The white flag going up, Amenemhotep and our Vultures are going to try to chase down this Glade Lord here. We don't want a single one of these guys surviving to replenish, so we are going to be as brutal as possible. A marvelous victory. And our first true engagement with the Tree Huggers goes disastrously for them, and Akka of Widrioth is defeated. We will have to chase her down, make sure there is no replenishing of these gold chevron forces, but there are many, many more armies to deal with. This is but the first. We will go ahead and bind their souls to keep the army marching on along.
More slaves.
King Amenemhotep is now on his royal tomb mark, and we'll have to try that in the next battle. Hopefully he is the master boatsman he appears to be. Mission was successful with Reichland, and we charge on forward. We will have ourselves another battle here with Everil. Let's get to it. And our bloody march on Athel Loren must continue unabated. Now that Amenemhotep is flying around on one of his royal tomb barks himself, he should be living his best life flying around on his floating boat all the time. For our battle strategy, we've got the bronze host holding the outsides with the Amenemhetep's Revenge and all of the other Tomb Corsairs in the center. We've got the Blessed Legion of Fox to drop armor on the other side, and all of our Vulture Legion with their Vanguard deploy up on the side, as well as Amenemhotep's Curse, which is the only one that actually has Vanguard deploy as well, rolling with them. We've got a support line of Carrion, but looks like most of the enemy had deployed up top. I was hoping they were going to kind of deploy as normal, but they've been elected for a very, very defensive strategy. We are going to send over the Tomb Barks to attack pretty immediately here, but what we'll do, since it's going to take a second for the enemies to actually spawn on in, is I will catch you all when they do arrive. And the Wood Elven reinforcements approach. It's time to come on back in, and let's get this battle going in earnest. So all of the Wood Elves are coming on into the forest, exactly where they want to be. We want to draw them away from the forest as far as we can, and away from this high ground they've got as well. We want to take the high ground with our archers that have way less range. Amenemhetep and the other barks are up front trying to eliminate these Glade Riders. He charges on in. We're being a little bit overly aggressive with Amenemhetep. I hadn't quite realized the true fragility of the magical chariots just yet. But Amenemhetep is going to try to continue to chase away those Glade Riders, but they're a robust group. Even with only a few models left, they're going to continue to fight for a majority of this battle here. We're charging the first group on away. Let them fire on, get those Parthian shots in. They aren't the best at choosing their targets, but you can't actually give them a target, so not a lot to do there. We charge on in to try to defeat this Glade Lord quick, but realize we're taking a little bit too much damage from those archers. We're going to try to pull on away. We probably could have kept in for a second longer just to see about eliminating it, but you can see the damage coming down as every time they give a volley. Not a lot of armor on these boats, and they're pretty susceptible to damage. Incredible when they can get a flank in, but each hit is going to be pretty devastating there. 4 Glade Riders left. They're discouraged, and they are still fighting. Unlike these Asrai spears here, who were completely shut down on the initial charge in. Carrion rush in to swarm the others from the skies. They will struggle against the Asrai War Dancers, but they've got hunger. They'll be doing some regenerating, and these guys are so weakened that I'm pretty confident in their capabilities of at least defeating a very weakened unit. Carrion are just kind of hanging out, waiting for a weaker unit, then rush on in from the skies and deal with. Got the Riders will lot up a little bit further in, but they dropped a Spirit Leech on the Glade Lord. It's a little bit of an overkill, as you can see. It's going to continue to cast for a while, but the Glade Lord has fallen. He had just the smallest amount of health left. Carrion are making quick work of the weakened units, exactly what we want from them. They can do some damage and flee on away before too much return fire heads their direction. Same thing with the Riders will lot up trying to dodge those Glade Riders' arrows. We're going to try to get in kind of a similar position we had last time, where they are trying to rush around obstacles and going straight into all of our nasty javelin spears. Amenemhetep, I don't know if I prefer him on the chariot more than the Sphinx there, but it is a lot more lore accurate for sure, so I'm happy to keep him on there. These Glade Riders realized we really needed to deal with. Bronze Host is perfect at doing so. For Carrion, we're a little bit slow, so we pull them off of that attack, because they were trying to lure them back into some Asrai War Dancers, and they get put in a blanket of arrows as well, which is no fun. Doing the same in kind, just kind of keeping the Tomb Barks on the outskirts so they can fire around any shields anyone may have. And the Carrion are just looking for weakened targets and trying to scare off any archers. We're happy to let them take some damage as they kind of rush in. But if they can shut down these enemy archers, like these Blade Guard with Hagbane tips, that's a ton of missiles. They're all going to be magical attack. We need to shut that down and kind of keep it from firing, even if we lose some Carrion in the process. Swarm on down. Flaming arrows blanketing those Treekin. It's going to be an absolute ton of damage. You can see those Treekin drop like flies. Swinging those branches around. Everyone's got an Achilles, and our flaming arrows find them very well. The health dropping pretty quick. You got the Glade Riders trying to do damage to our Phytozondry, trying to bring it down. It's got almost no health left, but they do flee from the flaming arrows of the Vultures. A lot of the Asrai are turning and running. Medamhedem's Tomb Corsairs are incredible in combat. They've got the sassy walk for a reason. Looks like he's mad at this Wildwood Ranger. Dude, you better run, you're about to get pulverized. He mistakes you for a Tomb Guard. Whole bunch of fire arrows flying on in. I love the effects on the fire arrows. I wish we actually had more of them in the base game. I'm hoping we're going to get some more units. I mean, obviously, all of the Chaos Dwarves are going to have fiery-based attacks, but gotta love colored projectiles. Blade Guard are actually holding their own pretty well against Arcarian, but the healing on Arcarian is keeping them intact for the moment. The Riders of Volata have taken a lot of damage. We're trying to get them on out of the fight, but they have been intercepted by those Glade Riders. We'll see if they actually manage to survive. Their sacrifice will be worth it if not. The front line of Asrai has pretty well been crushed. They do keep charging back in, but it seems to be completely foolhardy at this point. Coated in blood. Got the crabs helping out a Medamhedem. Trying to shut down any of his archers that were not able to with the Carrion, as they got bogged down with the tree men up top. The Riders of Volata, though, do fall. Their final rider toppling from his mount. They'll be back. And their sacrifice was well worth it. Spellsinger sprinting on away with her troll hair, but that is another defeat for the Asrai. We're going to try to hunt down this tree men and as many of these guys as we can. And that is another crushing defeat for the foolish tree people. Another victory, but this time we did actually lose some of our own. The Reapers of Volata have fallen. They will be back in about 10 turns, but we will need to probably retreat just for a bit here and recruit up something to replace them. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and bind their souls as well. And as they retreat, we will gain the Assault Expert. We killed Teveril, so they have to recruit up a new Lord there. We gain a Banner of Swiftness, and what we will do is turn around and jump into March Dance, which should allow us to get right back into Bilbali. At least do some extra replenishing while Alul of Druthendor jumps on over here as well. That is 2 armies defeated. Skavenblight is under siege, though, at the moment. Give us a close defeat for this battle. It would be a very tough one to win. Our Nehekara warriors are almost on par with the War Dancers, but as you can see, 37 melee attack and 27 defense, as opposed to 41 and 58. They are armor-piercing and anti-large instead of infantry, so we would at least fight all right, but that's going to be quite a nasty battle. Go ahead and pull on back. Let them come to us. If I can defeat this other tree-man army, I can pretty easily come back on over and help out with Skavenblight, but for now, we have to leave that as is. The Stone Legion catches up with a surprise Demon Prince on the coastline to the north of the Sinhal Monolith. Karan had recently reformed, but he was not expecting the great constructs to reach him already. His forces had not yet recovered from their harrowing journey across the Lustrian Strait, and were easy targets for the great bows of the Ushabti. Any survivors cut down mercilessly by the melee-focused constructs. He then loaded up on tomb ships with great urgency, intending to launch an invasion of Lustria and crush the source of these Tzeentchian legions. Tyros' purpose was finally made clear. While seemingly running from Settra, he had actually been setting up a series of crystal foci on positions along the coast. He then landed and set to work on a mighty spell that rendered all of our empire motionless, as if caught in an unbreakable stasis. Settra alone had the willpower to fight through the winds of magic, his fury driving his soldiers onwards towards the source of this annoyance. Tyros was far too busy working his magic, and had not foreseen the strength of Settra's divine will. The feathered creature's arrogance proved once again to be his downfall, and the spell was at once broken, returning Khemri to normalcy. Vlad's remaining forces with Isabella here have holed up in the Griffinwood. Don't think they'll be able to actually hold off the onslaught from Arkhan the Black, but they've recruited up as much as they can, and they're going to make their final stand here. They do have 2 final settlements, but those will be quickly mopped up once we defeat Vlad. Pretty tough fight, though, because he has Isabella and another Vampire of Shadows, as well as a Necromancer to keep everyone topped off with health. This will be quite the battle. We have a lot of artillery, so we're going to want to make use of that to the extreme there. Looks like this is going to be a battle out on the field, and we do have the high ground, which is going to be incredibly useful here, especially with all of our artillery pieces. We will want to try to keep all of his really chunky, large units under wraps there, because he's got quite a bit of mobility. This will be quite the battle. Let's get to it. I think Arkhan will find Vlad and Isabella a much more deadly target than Manfred. Make no mistake about that. So Arkhan is going to be charging straight ahead on in with his zombie dragon. We also have our new lovely brimstone guns on loan from Karaza Karak. They've got some awesome colors. They decided, I guess, to paint the blaze the baby blue, and the body of the gyrocopter itself becomes the red. Pretty awesome looking. I don't mind the Kimry colors. I just wish we could get some something a little more deadly looking. We're very visible here with our blue and red colors. We got the magma cannons leading the way there. We'll kind of take a look at our strategy. I've got all of the big boys up front. This is a absolute horde of undead moving our way, and we are pretty heavily outnumbered here. So we've given some buffs to whom we can here. The Harbingers of Osirian, who we've brought on in. These are kind of new units there. They're more or less the... can't think what they're called. They're in the Druki. They've got a sort of cavalry. They are the Warlocks. Can't think of the name, but they're the Warlock-type cavalry. We'll have Arkhan charging on forward. We're going to have him use his noxious breath wherever we can here to kind of blast up the line. But everyone else is going to try to get those javelins in on the targets as soon as they do close the gap. Try to get our artillery to blast them apart beforehand, though. The Casket of Souls have already kind of let their presence be felt. They're going to keep launching all the way. Pick their targets, try to shoot them in on things that are not such as the Skaven Slaves. Isabella is zooming on in as fast as she can. Does not like that Arkhan has arrived, and he's moving over to deal with him as fast as possible. She's got several pretty sizable buffs to pop, as well as all sorts of different heals, so she's going to be very hard to bring down. We've got all sorts of funky lag going for this battle. I think it's just due to the massive number of undead wiggling their way across. All of the spells go down. Whole heap of particle effects. Got the other Vampiress charging on over, getting a whole heap of javelins chucked at her, though. She's not enjoying that one bit. Will regenerate that quite quickly, though. Stomped on by the Necrosphinx, or the Necrolith Colossus. We have the cavalry working together over here against the Black Knights, popping down the debuff of the Word of Pain just to drop their melee attack to almost 0. In fact, it is 0 for these Black Knights, as the Necropolis Knights will wiggle on over with their halberds. They'll rip these Black Knights apart and then move over to deal with some of Vlad's other very dangerous units, such as these Hex-Wraiths, moving over with their barrier. They're trying to get around on the side of our units, but we're going to do everything we can to stop them. These guys are in the Phalanx mode, so they're bracing, and they will have a little bit of extra melee defense. Did get blasted at by those Terror Guys, though, so a little bit of a miscast, or at least a misplay on my side. We should have seen that coming. Flame cannons are continuing to blast away at anything they can, trying to target the regenerative monsters such as the Crypt Horrors, since they do have a bit of a fire weakness, and it does slow down their regeneration. Arkhan has been getting healed, and he's being attacked by the Fat Bats. There are glass cannons, so they will take a lot of damage in return. But they can also dish it out. Wind of Pain ripping through the line, trying to get in some of these other units as they rush on forward. Anything it touches is going to have a really bad day, but you need to watch out because Isabella's in the back line, chasing off our Roombas of Doom. Hateful she is, given those cuts. We need to get them away from her as fast as we can, and we're lucky she's not a player. And I think Vlad would have defeated me if it wasn't an AI. Or if it, yeah. I meant what I said. X-rays are getting destroyed, though, by our Necropolis Knights. And the Paradise is actually trading pretty well against our Pyro Titan here. Flying and armor piercing, he's performing alright. Isabella got bored attacking the Roomba, and she's going to go find someone else to bully. While the Fat Bats and Skaven Slaves try to team up on our gyrocopters, they're going to pull away from that nonsense. Try to drop some bombs on their way through. As we have now moved our cavalry over to deal with the next group that's in their way. Probably shouldn't have kept them bogged down in these spearmen, but we eliminated them quickly and we'll move on from there. Luckily, we do have a whole heap of range, still firing away at the enemy as another Storm of the Night drops down, on this time on the Gyro Bombers. Really nice shot coming out from the Casket of Souls, and another one bombarding in on this side. Getting a bit of friendly fire, but still blasting mostly into those Skeleton Warriors. flame cannons are trying to keep Arkhan safe, who is bogged down once again by Isabella. She is proving herself to be an absolute nuisance. Spearmen are holding pretty well against these crypt horrors, though. Love to see it. Normally an anti-infantry unit would perform even better, but there are 2 of them here, and I guess we did lose a lot of skeleton javelins. The Terrorgeist has been surrounded and now torn apart by the Necropolis Knights, doing their job. Vlad is over here being an absolute uber chad. He hasn't even taken a point of damage. And he is fighting this is Omaha Anubis, I mean. Omaha getting sliced, as well as several of Vlad's own vamps. Omaha needs to run away as fast as he can. He stands less than no chance against Vlad von Karstein in a battle. These zombies they do send over here are bogging our troops down pretty well. We need to get these guys out of the fight with these garbage zombies and in with the more important units, such as Vlad. We did hit our tier 3, so the Ushabti are going to be coming in to try to bog Vlad down even further there. As Isabella stays tight on Arkhan, my plan was to land him in with our Necropolis Knight and get her fighting something that she doesn't really want to. She instead chooses to go after the rather large units, so I drop down Arkhan's Toonblade to try to keep her bogged down so the Necropolis Knight can get in there and get all that chip damage in on Isabella. She has taken also almost no damage. For any damage she has, she's regenerated it back pretty quickly there. A lot of his forces are breaking, but we do still have to deal with the 2 most deadly units in the entire army, which is Vlad and Isabella. Their other vampiress here, what's her name? Alfreda. She has not performed nearly as well, but is also bogged down in the Bronze Legion, and they are an elite force. Our cavalry has defeated their targets. They're going to rush on over to try to help with Vlad, dropping down some debuffs on him, with the Soul Stealer giving him some damage, and then the Word of Pain lowering his attack. He still has 42, which is more than most of our army, so he's still landing some hits, but way less often than before. Those Brimstone guns singing. Almost used all their ammunition. How much damage have they actually done? They got up to 108 kills. They haven't been done bad for themselves. Well done, Dawi. Isabella now finds herself in with far more friends than she expected. Fighting just Arkhan by himself would have been a easy fight for her, but now that he has brought goons, it becomes much more deadly. Vlad and Isabella are going to fight for an absolute ton of time. I'll speed things up just a little bit there while our Necrolith Colossus moves on over. Want to keep your gyrocopters in guard mode, because otherwise they charge on into combat, and they do terribly in combat. Basically just sends them in to be slaughtered. Gotta try to bring down this Necropolis card here, because it's keeping everyone around it healed. Isabella, though, has finally started to take a good deal of damage. He heals it up, though, so fast. It's pretty incredible. And make sure that nothing is surrounding her but Hyro Titan, Arkhan, and the Necropolis Knights. While meanwhile, it looks like Omaha did not manage to escape from Vlad there, and he is now, I almost thought he was Arkhan, he is now going to be wounded. You will see, since this is in the future, after the battle, I do think that Omaha has fallen. He is, and he's just wounded. He was elite enough that he is now mortal. Vlad gets knocked off his feet. We are going to sit here for a minute while Vlad does disintegrate on away, but we did manage to defeat this rather large horde of undead. They flee for the hills or lie crumbled. Even Isabella has been defeated. She was a menace. I'm very, very glad that she got bored fighting our artillery pieces, otherwise we would have lost both of them very easily. She only hit them like twice each. All I had to do was pull them away from her a little bit. She was very uninterested after that. So keep that in mind for your battles. If they have a lord coming on over, just run them away. Maybe they will lose interest. Maybe. The defeat of the von Karstein came at the loss of one of our heroes. The priest on Omaha Anubis has fallen. We also lost King Nakash's Scorpion Legion and a unit of our javelins. But the von Karsteins have been crushed yet again, 2 very large armies. And if we move quickly, we can eliminate Sylvania before they have time to come on back and honor the sacrifice of our Lich Priest here. Lucini and Telea is the first of our glorious cities to feel the wrath of the Wild Hunt. Our garrison fought hard but stood no chance against the wrath of the forest, and the Asrai claimed the place as an outpost for future attacks on our lands. Queen Rasut's endurance has been tested and proven. Her legions have persevered through the swamps corrupted by Nurgle, shrugging off pox and plague that would have decimated mortal armies. They have finally reached their intended target at the Shattered Stone Isle. The warriors stand ready to purge this place of the sickening corruption. Let the battle begin. Rasut's next attack on the Dread powers of Nurgle is to take place on the Dread Rock. Going to be quite a nasty siege just because Nurgle has some of the strongest towers in the entire game, just to kind of counteract how slow and honestly their lack of ability to dish out damage. They did change a lot of that, but they did not change the potency of their towers, so we will have to deal with that. This is going to be a Lizardman settlement here, so let's take a quick look. Probably going to want to use our Ushabti Great Bows there to tear down as many of those outside towers as we can as we rush the walls. Get those ancient tomb mummies on the walls there. They have a bit more ward save at 15% with our research there of awakening the lost tombs. I think we should have what it takes to bring them down, but you do have to keep in mind that our war beasts are not actually the most competent at dealing with demons, especially with all of this additional physical resistance these guys have. We'll want to make sure we get magical attacks on them with any of the spells that we actually have that are capable of doing so, if we do have any. And if not, we'll have to make sure we make good use of any of our damage dealers that actually do have those magic attacks. Leave the battle going. Nurgle's forces think themselves safe behind their tall walls and dangerous towers. We will prove to them how wrong they are. So to start this battle up, we have Rasut and all of her most dangerous forces all over here on the side. We'll have our Ushabti Great Bow trying to bring down these fort towers as fast as we can. As you can see, the Nurgle towers are deadly. 660 missile damage and then 220 armor piercing, as well as a little bit of explosive. And then they also blind you, which will drop your melee defense attack and accuracy. They are awful. Actually, these aren't even Nurgle towers. These are the ones for the Lizardmen. That's the blinding effects from the Stegodon laser guns. Fair enough. So what we'll do is we'll swing on over and we'll show off what my sneaky boys are doing. We've got a whole bunch of cats in the woods here. Half of them are going to go take down this gate. The other half are going to rush around to the other gate. And then they will claim points and just be a huge old annoying distraction on their way in. And the rays of light come on blasting down, smashing our Cimbrian War Sphinx and the Lions of the Sand a little bit there, as well as crashing into Rasut's War Sphinx to their own detriment, I think. The ballista shots crash into the fort tower, missing the Lions of the Sand both times. They were going to try to stand them right next to the tower so they're not able to fire on both sides. And then we're going to bring this gatehouse down. Our ancient tomb mummies are going to quickly take the walls. They all have magical attacks and a lot of ward save, so they will be great at dealing with the demons on the walls there. And shutting down these towers or any of the ones that they would have. They don't even have any over here, but the best thing, we can send them up on the walls, delete a lot of these plague bearers, and then charge them down and around once the battle is engaged for real. Even though there's no one in that secondary tower there, we're going to shut it down anyway just because we don't want those Nurgle boys getting any kind of extra damage from it. Then they can switch their targeting to hitting any of these guys behind the wall here. They can actually reach. Since they are more or less artillery units, they have to have line of sight on their targets more or less to actually hit them. Less of an arcing shot for these bows. Cats are all in on the gates and they're ripping through them pretty quickly. But the more interesting part of the battle's over here. We just haven't quite made it through those gates. We are up on the walls, though. Plague bearers are already taking some casualties. Little Nurgling jumps out of his body after he falls. That's great. I mean, those guys are full of Nurglings and they are disgusting looking, but it's an interesting little death animation I hadn't seen yet. The ancient tomb mummies should make very short work of the plague bearers on the walls here. Kepler Guard are coming up to lend their support as well. Normally I wouldn't even worry about having our skeletons take to the walls here, but since they do actually have those magical attacks, and they're acting as more or less aspiring champions, they're going to pretty easily defeat everything that comes to fight them on the walls. The gates have been broken open, and the Ushabti pour in. Plague Toads are going to have a really bad time. Rasut and her Sphinxes are in on the rear here, trying to shut down these hand grenades before they can actually do anything. And also these spawn rushing in to try to close that gap. Haven't taken much damage. Festering Stooges are dropping down at their regeneration for all of their troops. They do help regenerate vigor for their soldiers as well as health. Poor cultist on the wall got absolutely smacked. All of our big beasties are filing on in through the main gate. Baltafani is here as well. The demons are quickly being routed and sent back to warp. Those that are allowed to, at least. These spawn lay as dead mounds of flesh. We have been using the Ushabti Great Bow to kind of shoot down the enemy towers that are, as they're popping up. And the cats do battle in the tower across the way here. Let me pause real quick for this battle. It's going to take away from the immersion a smidge, but I'll be right back when I deal with this battle going down. And let's get back to it. Yeah, they couldn't handle that other cats on a digital substrate were getting more attention than themselves. They'll have to deal with it. We will swing back over to where Rasut is doing battle. The cats are through the gates on both sides. They're going to be rushing forward to claim those points. I don't really want them to be doing battle with these zombies much at all. Unless they're in overwhelming numbers, you're going to have a really hard time actually doing anything to them with all that physical resistance and melee defense. I guess they mistakenly decided to send those plague bears up to the wall, the plague drones up to the wall. Plague drones are pretty decent in combat only if they can get a flank. Because of how large their targets are and how little melee defense they have, they get brought down pretty quickly. As you can see, their health is just dropping so fast. All of the little nurglings are swarming on over as well. We left the Greater Basth here while the others rush forward. We already claimed the first point over here, and we are quickly grabbing the others. They've dropped down a Plague of the Slug, or the Curse of the Slug there on those guys to slow them down a little bit. Don't think it's going to do quite as much as they think. Some up-close shots of the battle as we're just going to blend our way through the unending tide of putrid flesh. Carve your way through is all there is to it. Wish we had some fire to get our way. But Rasut only really comes with spells to help her speed up and kind of rip through smaller groups. Normal Pendulum doesn't do bad though, we have a pretty sizable group here to get hit with it. We missed one of our other casts looking at the cats on the other side. We have easily defeated the demons on this side. We just have to kill a couple of these spawn, which Rasut and her other war stings are going to be really great at doing. Nurglings are being blasted all the way back here by those Necroserpents. Just not a fight that's going the way of the grandfather there. Gotta love the Nurglings' attack animations, though. Theirs are some incredible work. Pick one of them up and throw them like a catapult, or use themselves as a whip. Whole bunch of them using some very, very unique animations. It'd be very cool if the Skaven got something similar with like little swarms of rats, because on tabletop, if you've heard anyone talk about it, I've never played tabletop myself, but Great Book of Grudges always talks about it, where they have access to little rat swarms, and he really wishes they had them in here, and I think that'd be pretty cool, especially for these nerdlings. Just kind of as a unit to bog guys down. Baltafani's coming on back over, deal some damage. Actually, this may be one of our others. This is Maka. Cat from real life. Enters battle. In real life, Maka's a little bit chunky. She probably couldn't do much fighting. This version of Maka is undead and super beefified. These poor Nurglings got surrounded and destroyed by our little cats. That's what I was saying. You want overwhelming odds against demons while fighting with our little war beasts. War beasts struggle very, very hard against demons. But we have extreme overwhelming odds. Little Piranha did their work there. We can storm on back over and deal with this next group. Or completely ignore them even and go after the victory location. We have choices. Especially since the rest of their army is pretty well crushed. War Stinks battering down at most of these little Nurglings who are choosing to kind of squish on away and go back to the garden. Much nicer there anyway, no one's trying to stab you. Well, with swords. The battle is more or less over, but we have to have the little Basth here. Horrifying. Also a unit I hope makes it to the base game. All of the little battle cats. Kind of interesting that they didn't make it into the game, seeing as, I mean, they are based on ancient Egypt, and Egypt has all of the different uses for cats. In Warhammer, we can make them murdery. Suit stepping on the trap, giving herself a bit of weakness to all of her attacks. Really doesn't matter. The swarm of concrete is moving down towards these next group of Nurglings. As Rasut, oh yes, this is one of the things I wanted to show you all. With Rasut and all of her different speed spells, you can get her speed so incredibly high. So activating Claws, Pans, Basth Grace, all at the same time. We could take this even further with some other spells, but she's up to 143 speed, so she on her War Sphinx moves so fast. It's pretty incredible. Newfound love for Rasut. You learn more about the characters each and every battle you fight with them. So we just have to eliminate the rest couple of these troops here. They're pretty much dissipating back to the warp. This is a resounding victory and a awful defeat for Nurgle. Well, it turns out our war beasts performed just fine against the Poxmakers of Nurgle. We should never have mistrusted Basth's faithful chosen servants. We will go ahead and claim this victory and dedicate our 22 lost souls. We will go ahead and I'd like to sack Dreadrock just because, but at this point we have conquered so much land, I would just like to keep the settlements as is. And if we need to do any rebuilding, we definitely can do so. Okay, threw us back over to the Empire, but I'd like to go see the settlement that we just claimed, thank you. Let's zoom on back out. We have claimed much of the known world. Almost quelled the darkness in the south as well. We'll get to that. Queen Rasut, you have a plague to deal with, but luckily these aren't the two negative plagues. These are just the ones that give them more Nurglings and a bit more gold as well. So let's swing on in and give us Burona's Time Warp. I realized that with all of these different speed buffs in this last battle here, we can boost the speed of Queen Rasut here to almost astronomical levels. She was up to 143 running around on the War Sphinx last battle there. So I think we can get that even higher. For Prince Krata, I think we'll go ahead and give his ability to spread control. We're going to need it over here in the blasted wastes. Looks like we destroyed all the buildings that were there previously, so doing a bit of stacking was probably not a bad idea. We'll just go ahead and throw in the garrison then and wait for what's coming. Khalida and the Nurglish forces look like they were about to scrap a moment ago, but I don't know what happened. We lost vision on the area. We're going to try to get more vision on it and see what's going on, but we will move on in and crush them regardless. So actually, yeah, let's swing on down. What happened in that conflict? It looks like nothing. They just kind of squared up and looked at each other for a minute. Khalida ran on off because she's just fielding with a bunch of archers. That makes all the sense. Well, Nekaph is in an ambush stance, so we'll have to see if we get any sneaky business going on. But I think not. We'll just kind of smash our way up the coast here and then deal with Khalida in due time. The Vulture Lord leaves the defenders of Bilbali, entrusting the commanding Lich Priest with protecting the city at all costs, while he moved to rebuild the ruins of Castle Carcassonne. His intention to deliver it back to the beleaguered Bretonnians, in return for their agreement to pledge service to the King of Kimry. The Stone Legion lands on the shores of Lustria with the force of a volcanic eruption. The meager force left on watch barely had time to register the sounds of their approach before they were crushed underfoot. Zahinizmet dedicated his victory to Gehed, god of strength, and set immediately to repairing and improving the ruined Chaos City to his exquisite standards. The filthy pirates that have been darkening our waters with the foul taint of the corrupted undeath have been caught. Our kings tasked with the defense of the mainland had skillfully maneuvered to cut the raiding swoops off in the Shark Straits, just before they were able to make their escape back to open ocean. The king swiftly deployed his forces and awaited the frustrated advance of the pair of captains and their dread crew. His legion was vastly outnumbered, but King Sanakht had brought with him 4 mighty bone giants, and was backed up by gyrocopters from Karaz-Karak. By the will of Tra, he would see these raiders destroyed. And the undead swashbucklers strayed just a bit too close to our shores. They managed to be caught. They're both in march stance. You poor fools, they're going to be tired in battle. We have a whole bunch of artillery giants ourselves, which can be just thrown on into the fray once they're out of ammunition. We've got our Tombbarks, and then we even have some gyrocopter brimstone guns on loan from Karaz-Karak to help us defend Kimry proper. They are eager to get into the fight. Bill Jenkins and his friend Jim the Salt Spray here are in for the worst time of their piratey lives. Let's crush them. And so the vampirate fools will perish on the shores of Kimry. We have ourselves a whole heap of bone giants up front. Battle strategy is kind of keep all of our large units up front to let all of the cannons and artillery blast off of them instead of our much more squishy Tomb Guard units. We have our Tomb Barks as well rolling in, as well as some gyrocopters for this army as well with those brimstone guns. So we have quite the force to deal with the enemies here. They have a lot more numbers, and 2 whole armies, several more lords and heroes, and then these Scourge Runner chariots, which I think are going to have a really, really bad day. They just don't know it yet. Get this battle going in earnest. Bone Giants are all moving up to pick different targets there. I have them all targeting. These guys are after the Scourge Runners, these ones are after the Prometheans, and then these 2 are just kind of blasting away at any of the units they can see up front, or the Cannonades in the back line there. Meanwhile, we've got the boats moving up on the side. We just kind of want to surround and destroy the enemy best we can, kind of keep their missile units distracted and not able to pick one target at a time. Slowly kind of limbering into formation now. First few arrows start to be knocked and loose. Scourge Runner chariots take a direct hit, and as do the Prometheans. Got a Spirit Leech going down on our Scorpion there. Actually take more damage than you would expect. Scourge Runner chariots take another direct hit, being blasted apart. Prometheans also receive a helping of Explosive Arrow. We have a thunderstorm coming on in, so any booming you hear in the background is going to be of nature's variety. Cannonades actually are blasting off of our Giants pretty well there. Able to avoid a lot of the return fire. A lot of those arrows are completely missing their mark there. That one didn't know, smashing directly into the depth guard there. Continuing to blast away at the enemy before they get too close. Arrow after arrow slamming home. Every single time they do, dealing immense damage. We feel every miss, though. The Scourge Runner is going to be moving up and firing away at our Dreadlich there. The Tomb Scorpion moving on forward. Got their extra chunky crossbows firing away, doing some pretty sizable damage. They stop moving, it makes them easy prey for our Bone Giants. We're continuing to fire on away. Blasting apart their large units. The Bone Giants do have a bonus versus large missile. Will do quite well. Another Spirit Leech dropping down, this time on our Ushabti. We're going to absorb it quite a bit better than the Tomb Scorpion will. Our Tomb King has rushed on in. He doesn't want to stay in that fight for too long, though. The Promethean Rider is quite a bit more deadly than himself. Necro Serpent is throwing it down with some animated hulks. Could be a pretty easy fight for him, especially with the help of these Necro Serpents. Necropolis Knights, plus the other Scything Huge Blade should make pretty quick work of this. They're getting some fire in on our units, though, and our choppers have taken a lot of damage from those handguns. The reinforcing army has rushed on over with all of their bats. We have a lot to deal with, and we don't quite have them under wraps just yet. We have to annihilate these first guys. Several of them are on the last legs, though. And the Colossus continues to blast away, destroying several of those innocent crew members there. Sirens were also charging forward through a devastating salvo of magical attacks. They're about half health now. Still a pretty nasty unit if they're allowed to get into a fight. For some reason, their gunners decided that they would like to jump into a melee here momentarily. They start shooting for a second and they rush on in. I am unsure why. They would have been much more survivable had they stayed back and actually used up all their ammunition and space there. But instead, they fly on into melee and get smushed for it. We have dealt with the handguns there, and we're kind of trying to bounce around. The handguns do a ton of damage to our Tomb Barks, and we want to make sure we kind of minimize that as much as we can. Tomb Scorpion is going down against a bunch of other crustaceans there, not of the concrete variety. Folks are losing their fight pretty badly. Now the infantry has finally made it on in. We can start lending some assistance to our beleaguered large forces there that have already taken quite a bit of damage. They're tossing some hand grenades in, probably getting a lot more friendly fire than they normally would. Horn Ghouls are trying their might against our Necro Serpents and are feeling the wrath quite badly. Poison attacks and bonus versus large going to be making that fight go much more their way. Kind of see the sheer damage that these handguns can actually do to the Zandri boats if they're able to fire even for a moment. We did end up losing the one. It explodes in a shower of souls. Our first boat fallen in combat so far this campaign. Almost a privilege to get to see its death animation. Only the largest Morngol survives, and he is being quickly chopped down at by our Ushabti Ancients with their bonus V large and thundering attacks. Very glad the infantry's moving in to take up some of the brunt of this so we can retreat our large units. Don't want to lose too many of these guys. Our Necropolis Serpents have taken quite a bit of damage. Front line, though, going fairly our way. We do need to get some help over here for our Necrosphinx and Serpents. There are several heroes that have joined the fight now, and they're going to be causing all sorts of problems. Colossus Bones have changed their targets to start splashing away in these crewmates. You have some deck guns we don't want to have firing for too long at all. They take some shots in at the Necrosphinx and have to move up. While our Bone Giants continue to blast away at their crewmates there. Necrosphinx is holding its own just fine, but the Serpents are having a little bit of trouble. They're starting to crumble on away. We may end up losing them. Let the Brimstone guns coming on the side here and start blasting in on the exposed flank of Will, the Morngol Haunter. Get some fire damage to lower his regeneration, and then that bonus versus large ammunition doing good work. Bone Giants are continuing to fire away, blasting pretty sizable holes in the deck gunners' lines. They're starting to run low on ammunition, though, so they're going to have to start waddling into combat pretty soon. Another shot blasting a little ways onto the side. I wish they'd shoot more central in the line. They do kind of shoot towards the outsides. Coordinated fire coming down on our Necrosphinx, but we are slowly ripping through these units. Casualties taken for sure. But all in defense of Khemri. Great Weapon Tomb Guard should make very short work of these enemies here. Not really what they typically want to be fighting here after usually some heavily armored infantry units, but they'll do just fine against these light armor. The drawback to the armor-piercing units is they usually don't attack nearly as often. Just got a single unit of the handguns left, as well as the deck guns, which are completely obstructed by their handgun brethren, so they are doing almost nothing. We'd love to see it. They're going to start taking some shots where and when they can, though. Trying to bring down our other boat, which, if we leave it for too long, can very easily happen. Trying to avoid the damage for the enemies there, but it is too late. Their lines crumble, and that is a victory for Khemri. One final victory under our belt. We claim victory, but we do end up losing a couple of our units. We lost one of the Tomb Barks and our Necropolis Knights, but we can always train more where that comes from. The Bone Giants did a very good job of blasting apart the enemy with their giant colossal bows from afar. They weren't so great at anti-siege unit dueling, but we'll have to keep that in mind for the future. They're very good at dragging down those big targets. They had several very good direct hits in those Scourge Runner chariots that were very key. We will go ahead and bind these souls.
More slaves.
And then King Sanacht has himself a Khemrian War Sphinx, which would be amazing for the next couple battles. Wee Pete was killed. Bill Jenkins was killed. Poor Bill. He was in our Noctilus campaign as well. He did quite a bit better than in that battle there. We will jump them into March, get back over to the Sorcerer's Islands, and replenish those soldiers and constructs that we lost in the battle. Gyrocopters didn't do great, but that's just because we didn't have the best opportunity to use them. I'm not amazing with the Gyrocopters, but I am determined to learn how to use them. He is moving towards Rakash, is moving towards Sarkosa. We are about to have all of the forces combined to fight against the Wood Elves. Medamedam is up in the north, ready to lay siege to the King's Glade. We're going to try to lure some of these guys out over because there's a lot of armies all kind of clumped up here at once. Medamedam is very deadly, but doesn't have all of the forces I would say we need to take on multiple forest dragons at once. There are 2 in this army. I know there's more lurking around here as well. There are more than, three forest dragons that we see for here. And Amenamenem just does not quite have enough large units to keep those guys bogged down instead of kind of flying on over and blasting our lines with their breath spells. We'd also really like to pass off Castle Carcassonne, but we will get there when we get there. Much to do, but for now it is time for Settra to take back to his advisor chamber. Settra's Legion continues to personally see to the purging of the Southern Chaos Wastes, but our story is out of time for today. I hope you all enjoyed part 18 of our narrative campaign for Settra the Imperishable. If you have any tips, tactics, or unit name suggestions, take the comments and let's start a discussion. I have been Space Wizard War. Remember to leave a like for the like god, a sub for the sub zone, and I will see you on the next one.